Hey guys, Jason Moreno here. We got I'm figuring it out. We got Rances over here, baby boy, Mr. Roboto. Our other half is missing in action, but that's okay. He'll be here eventually. We're all adults and have a lot of things going on in life, and we just got to make it work the way it is. Today's episode is about our week and how we're dealing with the stresses of it and the tools that we use to help navigate it. Don't forget to listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Google Podcasts, soon to be YouTube Music. Um, Also, don't forget to watch us on YouTube and any other place that you could find podcasts, including VidaProject.com. Yeah, enjoy.
So what I was gonna say to you before when I asked you like how's your week been going is because for me, there's like a lot of things have come up
Okay.
that I'm like, okay, we can have topics on this, topics on this.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, this past week, I was traveling. I was supposed to be in the center in Mount Laurel, which is like an hour and a half away.
Okay.
So I was supposed to be in that center all week long. And it's a center that gets a lot of volume.
Mm-hmm.
So I was stepping in there as a PEC, which is like salesperson. So I'm just sitting with consults back to back to back to back. And it's the busiest center, so I'm getting a bunch of consults there. And I was there Monday. I slept there from Monday to Tuesday, but it was like a shitty hotel room. And I was like disgusted. I put a towel in the center of the bed and like slept in fetal position, which I didn't really sleep.
That bad.
I just felt gross in it. Like, so I didn't sleep at all from Monday to Tuesday. Right.
Yeah.
And then, so I was like, all right, when I'm done on Tuesday, I'm going to head home, drive back to an hour and a half, and I'll come back in the morning. Fuck that. So when I do that, I had a long ass day. I do that. I'm driving home. By the time I get home, Paula's on the phone that they've been calling her like different RDMs from the region that I'm supporting in right now, basically begging that I come and help another center that's in need in Pennsylvania. It's called Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
It's like, so that one's like 3 hours away.
Yeah.
So Paula's like, all right, he's down. I get home. She's like, you down? I'm like, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
So basically I got home late that night and just slept a few hours to get back up, get on a train to go over to this other place. The whole thing that happened was that the person that was there that I'm stepping in for, his wife just went into labor. So he had to like leave. So it was like emergency. They need the hand. So I was like, I'm down for it. So I get there like around noon. I'm exhausted. And I walk in and the first person in the front desk goes, you're late. It's like, what the excuse me? And then later on, I'm like, I still don't have a finger on it. I was like, was she making a joke? Like, because her humor seemed really rough. Like later on, as I saw her joking, I was like, was that like a joke? Because didn't land that way. But I was fucking pissed. So I was there again, another center getting slammed. I was back to back, like tons of consults, long ass day. Don't leave the center till like 7. And then, I got back home on Friday afternoon. So I was just like decompressing. But like through all of that, I had thought about like, okay, like the whole concept of like being willing to help is a topic. Then
That's yes.
Then with that is like on the flip side of it, people that are seeking help, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so because I had kind of that experience as a consult, as a salesperson, I'm trying to understand someone's story, their challenges and everything, to be able to offer them a solution that aligns with them. So there's that side. And then Paula and I are buying a house. We're already under contract, and we, getting estimates from contractors and everything. So it's like the level of stress of that. Like we spent the whole day designing what we're gonna do with the house. So it's like later on, I was like, Aman asked me. He came by last night and was like, he sent me a message today. He was like, "You okay? You seem more stressed than usual." I was like, "You think so?" He's like, "Yeah, you were kind of snappy with the kids and all this stuff." And then I reflected. I was like, "Well, let's see. I've had a migraine since May. I haven't. I'm starting a new job, purchasing a new house, trying to figure out like building out that new house, basically. Um, my kids, like making sure that they're getting the help and support that is very important for me from a core value standpoint. Like I guess, yeah, I can you can say I'm under some stress. Plus
Yeah.
the business has a lot of like basically it's a new business starting up. So I was like, yeah, I could see how that. So then that was another topic of like, just like stress and
Stress. Yeah. No, I think, yeah, let's talk about stress. I think the whole aspect of when it comes to having to be in 18 million places at once and be present and still have time for your mental health kind of thing, it's a wild thing because it technically just takes a backseat.
Yeah.
And you don't realize it at first, and it's just like, oh, I'm just gonna push through this because that's just what we do. You're just gonna make it work because that's the only thing you can do. And then you're like, holy crap, you start seeing it. You start seeing, you're snapping at people and stuff like that. I yesterday my mom was like, "You're grumpy today," and I was like, "Oh, am I? Am I grumpy, lady who I catered to the past fucking 3 weeks? Am I grumpy because you don't stop asking 18 million fucking questions at once? Because your questions are 8 different questions for 8 different things in one sentence. Oh, got it. So no, I'm with you. I think that is a great thing. I think it's also when we're stressed, it's like we tend to take it on the people that are closest to us,
Mhm.
kind of thing. And sometimes you don't even realize it. Like for example, like when a mom pointed out yesterday that he was like, "Oh, I just noticed you were a little bit like more snappy with the kids and stuff like that
Mhm.
and stuff." And it's hard to figure that out,
Yeah.
of like to notice it, to be aware of it, because your body's just like, dude, I just need somebody to just leave me the fuck alone for like 20 minutes.
Mhm.
And it's super. I'm learning how to deal with it now,
Mhm.
um especially being married and stuff like that, where it's like, I never want to take anything out on Ash, but it's hard because it's like, who else is in front of me that it's like, you're gonna wind up being snappy at some point, and then you just got to, fuck, I'm so sorry. She's PMSing right now. She's
Mhm.
that period is coming. It's brewing, and I love you, baby. But there's been times like I'll give her a compliment, and she's like, "What did you mean by that?" I'm like, I, I think you look really nice today," and it's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, man. I'm going through a lot right now." I'm like, "Whatever you want, just I'll do anything." Just oh my god. So
I'm sorry, was that
it's
loud?
no, I didn't hear anything.
Okay. I just wanted to I feel like I'm advertising for Rode
Yeah,
because it
right.
says Rode.
So it's just like it's hard to manage stress and then not lash out at people around you,
Yeah.
because it's hard to, part of it, it's like, I don't know, part of it for me, I guess sometimes, like, you don't understand, and it's like, they do understand, and they're going through their own shit too. Everybody's going through their own shit kind of thing, and it's just like,
Mhm.
oh, and I'm learning to, like, don't shut down, don't shut down, don't shut down, just don't go into your, you know what I mean? Like, before it was always like, oh, if I'm stressed out, I'm gonna go hide in my room for fucking 8 hours, and it's like, you can't always do that,
Mhm.
because you're not always gonna have that opportunity to, especially like with somebody like you where you have kids. You don't have time to fucking be like, "Don't talk to me, kids." Like, it's hard.
Well, I was kind of thinking about that because so like I looking at the things I'm reacting to, right, with my kids, it really comes from like expectation. Like I'm also being snappy with Paola,
Yeah.
right? And it's again expectations. It's like the buffer for expectations and compassion for not meeting those expectations really slims down, you know? So, but the expectations they're not necessarily changing, right? So, when I answered Aman, I said, uh, I want to make sure that my kids are empowered to be able to make decisions and handle their own problems and so on and so forth. So like I reflected on like the things I was snapping on yesterday as like that's what my internal goal desire is for them. So when they lack that for any degree, I'm just like, what the hell, you know? So, and then that concept going further into it, like the fear that stems that creates that anxiety is like the expectations. We want to reach these things. We want these expectations to be met, right? We want our lives to be going the way that we desire them to be. And anything that offers any insight that it's not going that way, that you're not meeting those expectations, it's actually in almost a challenge to your own ego, a challenge to your own reality in which you want to fight desperately from this desire of control and how you want things to be and what you think your life means and all of that stuff. So like stems all this stuff up that's like, what's this overreaction for? Is like that's where it comes from. These like deeper, like higher level visions, right? That you haven't really filtered through to
Yeah.
identify, you know? Was that a very Rances?
No, no, I actually understood that.
Yeah, bro, you are understanding me. I feel seen by you, man. And I'm starting to doubt that I'm getting better at it. I'm like, no, he's just getting better at understanding.
Yeah, I think it's just being around you enough and hearing you talk. I'm like, "Oh, no, I see where he's getting at." No, no, I think that's totally true, where it's, we have these expectations of our loved ones, and, it's not always gonna go the way that we expect it to go. And it's up to us on how we react to when things don't go the way that we expect them to. And it's hard. It's
Mhm.
hard. It's hard to be aware in that moment, because sometimes it's just like react. It's sometimes we're just reacting, especially I feel like when we're kind of tired and like everything is just like, oh my God, I'm just drained. It's like
Mhm.
the only thing that you can do is react. You don't have time. Your body's not willing to sit there and be like, okay, well, let's think about the eight different reasons why this could be, why this is happening, and to like assess those things until later. It's always like hindsight is 2020, you
Mhm.
know. Um, so it's just a matter of, like, I was having the conversation with Ash where it's like, the past few weeks, like my family has, and it's always like little things, but I'm just like, you guys need me to drive over there to take grandma's dog outside. Nobody can pick up this 12-pound dog and bring it outside. I have to, during work, I have to like be like, hey guys, I'll be back in like 30 minutes. Go walk the dog.
Mhm.
Like, I'm needed for this. Yesterday, um, I went to go take care of the dog because my uncle is in California, and my mom and aunt were sitting having wine on the balcony. And they're like, "Oh, we didn't even realize you came here." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. I just woke up from a nap after taking you to the football game in the Bronx, and then driving you back, and then having you go, oh, can you drop me off at the corner, and then you guys walk down the hill so me and your dad can go get Chinese food, because we don't want them to see us there because we're not supposed to be back for like another hour." I was like, and it's stupid shit that, like, I reacted. I was like, "What the I was walking down the hill, like, "What the fuck's her problem?" And Ash just like, "Relax. It's not a big deal." and I'm just ready to fight. And it's just because I'm reacting. I'm just tired. I'm
Mhm.
just tired of and it's not tired of being there for my family because that's just what we do. That's just, that's just the job. That's just how we are. But I'm like, I need to I just need like an hour to myself. Just an hour with Ash just to sit there and just fucking lay there and do nothing.
Mhm.
Have nobody answer. Like, I'm so happy now, like, when my phone dies, I'm, like, not charging this for a while. Like,
It's interesting because this past week I was telling you like all that travel, all that stuff,
yeah.
stress. Like like I said before, I've been having a headache since May. Like it's just this throbbing headache that in
Mhm.
fact I have like the side of my head swells up when the headache
Really?
gets really bad. Yeah, right here it swells up. It's literally like almost covers my ears. The more pressure I'm feeling in my head.
Yeah.
I noticed that one time when I got to Colorado, I looked in the mirror. I was like, wait, there's something weird about my face. I was like, wait a minute.
Pushing it, like, "Go
Yeah.
back in."
But it's really like I said, my headache feels like pressure. And then this is like, oh, there's literally pressure.
It's
um,
literally showing.
yeah. So, but like that during this week, excuse me, during this week, I was like under a ton of pressure because, I'm getting to the center. I'm in training, but I'm also trying to support. And also there's like, for me, it's very important, like the longer lasting impact. So I'm going
Mhm.
there to train and I'm going to see these consults that I want to make sure they're taken care of when I leave. Because the thing is, like, this is not my role. So it's not like I'm going to keep following up, but I want to make sure that whoever's responsible after me is following up with these people because they need help.
Mhm.
They came to us for help. So, like, all of this stuff is stuff that I'm like building pressure on. And then also, like, from my standpoint of when I see a center and I see issues happening in the center that I was like, this can be resolved easily. I start taking on that approach as well. So I'd like get into all this like thing that by the night from Wednesday to Thursday night, I was in the hotel room bed and I'm laying down and I sometimes get these heart palpitations. My heart rate races. I'm not doing anything. And this started like 2020. My heart rate goes up to like 120 from me not doing anything. All right. And it's just like this feeling of like anxiety that starts to build. And I've been kind of like when I have that, I kind of breathe or whatever. And for this moment, I actually welcomed it. I was laying in bed and I just like closed my eyes and I kind of went inside my body and tried to listen. What is it that you're trying to say? And the joke about me not crying, right? So no, I didn't cry,
Oh, damn it.
but I felt as if I were crying, just that the tears weren't coming out.
Okay.
But it was almost like this childlike version of me inside was crying and I was able to nurture it. Right. This was like my experience in that meditation of going in. And that was the first night that I've slept super deep and like woke up
Really?
the next morning super rested. Like and and all of that like tension, anxiety, pressure, like
Mhm.
was complete. Went back into the center and completely like calm and started like connecting with the GM and connecting with all these people and like, hey, giving them solutions, whatever, like 100% what I considered me,
Yeah.
and it was like it came from this place of acceptance, but also of like this self-nurturing um kind of care towards myself, where it was like, oh, there's part of me that needs to kind of be heard, you know and I gave that for myself, and it just released everything. Like even my headache the next day was like,
Went down.
it went down completely. And then the level of, I've been saying I've had a headache since May. And when I say that, it's like my standing line is a number 5, like 1 through 10, 10
Mhm.
being the most painful. 5
Yeah.
is like my steady, right? When it starts going to 7, 8, 9, that's when I'm just like, I can't stand it. Like I need to take something.
Mhm.
But the following day, like it dropped down to like a 3. I was like, wait, do I even have a headache? And I was like, I do, but it's like just barely there.
Yeah.
So it was like this kind of like, oh snap, you know, kind of experience that just like completely shifted me. So then, you know, coming back home and all the pressures of that, because it's like, okay, I get back home, Paolo was like, all right, so we already had inspection done, contractor saying this, they're calculating the number, we basically have to redo the entire house. It's like a completely thing because there's like asbestos and all this stuff and like break down walls everywhere, everything. So it's like, okay. um the
Be
kids were
calm. Be calm. Be calm.
the kids were off this whole week, and I wasn't here this whole week. So Paul, I was with them and trying to manage work and trying to manage this house thing. So she was like really needing me for support when I got back, and so she had a lot to you know talk
Yeah.
about and kind of decompress. So it was like came back home to a lot, and it was like, okay, now in reflection, I look back to what Amon witnessed, and it was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. All of that kind of folded over on itself and came thing. And like, if he wouldn't have brought that up to me, like I was pretty chill, you know, I wasn't like over the top. But then when he said like, you know, snappy, I was like, oh, I can see that, right?
Mhm.
And I can see where that's coming from. And I think it comes from that understanding of like, what is it that I'm trying to achieve with my kids? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I want my goal for my kids is for them to be, you know, independent thinkers, right? To be problem solvers, to be creative. And whenever I see them failing at those things, that strikes deep. Like I'm failing as a father, you know? And like that interpretation sounds dramatic, but it's what happens like deep inside you that you don't
Yeah.
really like make sense out of until you like give it the space. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, please subscribe, like below, comment, let us know your thoughts, and continue to enjoy.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Especially since you and Paulo hold like those like core values, like very, you know, it's very prominent in how you guys raise the kids. And I could definitely see how that can get to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially with kids, because sometimes you're just like, this is the question you're asking me. You had to stop what I was doing so you can ask me this. Yeah. You don't want to think about it for like 5 seconds and then come back to me with an answer. No. Cool.
So Logan got that gecko, right? He got it
Yeah.
last weekend. So this was the first weekend he was going to feed it. And then when he's going to feed it, he's freaking out. He's like, no, I'm afraid of it. I don't want to hold it. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is the
Now's
kid
the
that,
time.
yeah. And he goes and buys crickets. So he has crickets in a bag, hopping all over the place. And I'm terrified that this kid's going to freak out and open up this bag.
And now you have crickets all over the house. Great.
So like, you know, there were stressors there. But I expect more of my child.
Right.
And then he starts to tell me that yeah, I catch crickets in the wild. Like at school, they have this creek where they hang out, and he grabs fish out the creek. He grabs crickets, frogs. They found a snapping turtle in there, like all this stuff. And he's number one. And now your own pet that you've been researching for months.
That's
Now
when
you're
you
like,
scare.
yeah.
Yeah, I could see. I can see how that. I can see how that might make you a little snappy. It's funny. Like so much has happened this week. Like I forgot that my uncle passed away on my mom's birthday on the 22nd.
Mm.
He was sick for a while. He's my cousin's my little cousin who I'm always hanging out with now. Nico, his grandfather passed away on my mom's birthday. He was sick for a while. He was up there in age and stuff. Um, so Monday I took off to hang out with my little cousin. I took him out, and he is so much like me, and we deal with trauma the same way by making jokes. And then he was like, so long story short, he I was like, hey, I was like, I'm gonna give you a list of choices that we can do today. I was like, we're gonna go to lunch, and I was like, we're gonna have a good time. And he was like, dead grandpa privilege, and I was like, excuse me. He was like, yeah. He goes, I don't got to go to school today. He goes, "So all of a sudden you're free. he's like, we're going out to eat, and I'm gonna go play video games. So he goes, dead grandpa privilege isn't too bad. And I'm like, that's not what I heard yesterday. I heard you were fucking bawling your eyes out because your grandpa died. He goes, yeah, that was yesterday. This is today. It's like, Jesus Christ. So he was like, I was like, you hungry? He was like, kind of. He was like, I was like, what do you want? He was like, chicken fingers. I was like, you don't want chicken fingers. I was like, come on. I was like, your grandpa passed. I was like, my uncle passed. I was like, we're gonna celebrate his life with chicken fingers. I was like, don't you like steak? He goes, I love steak. I was like, all right, we're going to a steakhouse. So I took him to a steakhouse before we went to go play video games, and it was one of those things, like it reminded me of like when my grandpa passed away, and I was
Mhm.
a little bit younger than him. I think I was like in fourth grade, and it just hit differently. It just hit differently, and just to see him, and I just kept asking him questions. I was like, like, what was your favorite memory of your grandfather? Like all this stuff.
Uh-huh.
And he would tell me all these like little stories and stuff like that. And I was just trying to get him to realize that death sucks. Death isn't, it happens to everybody. There's no way of getting around it. We're all gonna die. Everything that we love is eventually gonna fade away at one point or another. Um, but we don't have to always look at it as a terrible thing, you know. And it was just like it was really heavy to think about the fact that, like, he got to spend a lot of time with his grandfather. His grandfather lived with them in the basement and stuff like that. Um,
There.
I was doing so
That's
well. I was doing so well.
But that
I
was
was
amazing. I just want to highlight this. Your awareness has shifted to in the moment. In the middle of the phrase, your awareness is there now. Just give it a little more time and your awareness is going to be before it then. And
Right.
that's going to be where you're going to add
Um,
corrections.
it's just one, and it was also, my uncle Gura was also pretty much, he's like my dad's brother-in-law, but there was such an age difference that, like, he helped like raise my dad. Like, my dad looked at him like that was his other dad. Um, and I had to break the news to my dad that Uncle Gura passed away, and like that was like, oof, I didn't enjoy that. Um, because when I called, I was like, "Oh, have you talked to Belkis today, my cousin?" He was like, "No," and he was really happy. I was like, bah, I don't have good news right now." I was like, Uncle Gura passed away, and I could hear him deflate,
Mm.
kind of thing, and it sucked. It sucked. And I think that's where like a lot of my stress came from this past week, was just like, fuck, like, my uncle passed away. I know this is affecting my family, and everybody's trying to do their best to be strong and, be accepting of it, because, death is inevitable, and my uncle was sick for a long time. But like, fuck, it's hard, and
Mhm.
everybody's putting on a good face, and I mean, you don't know whether or not, like, how to assess it sometimes, where it's like, do you just keep joking? Do we just keep joking? Do we just keep acting like, not that nothing happened, but like kind of like make light of it, I guess?
Mhm.
Or is it like, just cry, just let it out? Because my mom's always just like, just let it out, just show your feelings, kind of thing. Show your feelings, let it out.
Period.
And I'm trying to figure out how to balance the two and how to deal with people who grieve in their own ways. And it's hard. It's hard because everybody does it in such a different way, and we all have our own lives too, and it's like, what do you do? You know,
Mhm.
like w how do you navigate it? How do you go, if you need something, and the only thing you can do is just if you need somebody to talk to, if you need anything, I'm here for you, and just always extend that olive branch. But like, we are all so raised to just fucking just suppress it and just keep it moving because that's all we can do is just go forward. And I'm noticing that's just coming out in different ways.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I'm trying really hard to not not, let it consume me, not let it get to me as much as, there's times that it does. Um, because it's just one of those things like, he's not in pain anymore, but it's also like, somebody just lost their dad, somebody just lost their ex-husband, somebody lost their grandpa. I
Mhm.
lost my uncle, and like I was super close with him, but like all these other people were so much closer, and it's like, what do you do aside from just offer yourself to them and just try to be there, you know?
Mhm.
It's
I
one of
think
those things, like, as I get older, it's like trying to navigate that because, like, one day my parents are gonna die, one day all the people I love are gonna die. It's like, how do you deal with it?
Mhm.
You know? And it gets I do worry about, like, my parents dying a lot. I think
Mhm.
this reignited it, and it's just like, I don't know if I'm gonna be as strong as, like, everybody else is being strong right now, kinda thing.
Mhm.
And it's like, it's a fucking huge fear of mine, and I don't know, like, how I'm gonna react to it, and it's inevitable, it's gonna happen. It's like, don't think about it too much because, you know, you're fine right now, you know?
Mhm.
But it's just one of those things, like, I hope that whenever that time comes, that I have the strength that my family has right now, because, like, they're really good at either they're really good at hiding it or they're really fucking strong, and I hope it's the latter, and I hope, and I know it's both, but it's just one of those that, like, it's wild. I give my cousin so much credit for how strong she's being, you know?
Mhm.
It's scary to me.
Yeah.
And I know that's all over the place. I'm all over the place in my feelings in my conversation today. I'm sorry. That's just how I am
No,
with
that I
that.
mean, you're highlighting the core aspect of it, right? We were just talking about kind of expectations.
Yeah.
And when it comes to death, death shits on all of our expectations, right? It doesn't care.
Uh-uh.
And that, with so many other problems that we face, and this is like the hardest part. So many other problems that we face, we can, think ourselves into a place of a solution. Like we can come up with a solution. With death, no,
No.
no. So we try to grab on to something that feels like resolution, something that feels like, okay, well, he lived a good life.
Yeah.
That feels like a resolution to this issue. But the
Mhm.
reality is, it is a loss of perpetual expectations. And what I mean by that is, the closer you are with someone, you live a life where your lives are interwoven, right? So for example, in terms of your uncle, whether you saw him on a weekly basis, right? That cadence of seeing him in these places, in these moments, right? That is the interwoven thing. Connect that also with the conversations that are being had about him when he's not there, right? Those are also interwoven. And all of that just gets snipped when death happens.
Yeah.
and we don't have a solution for that. We don't have a resolution for that. And it lets us realize, like you said, like with your parents, it lets us realize how little control we actually do have. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the most terrifying thing, because our own lives we don't have control over. Our own, hey, listen, I do this, I see this person this day, and so on and so forth. Now my whole life structure has been discontinued. I have to readjust it, and it was completely out of my control. Is the most disempowering thing that you can feel. So all of that is what I call grief. You know, you're
Yeah.
you're you're, you're trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And like, you talk about being strong and that stuff. It's like, again, we're trying to find a resolution for something that doesn't have a solution. So it allows us to really confront that.
Yeah, I think it's also kind of like going back to like when I was like, oh, like my mom's here to pain in my ass this week. I think a lot of it has to do with like my fear of like losing them. So it's like I kind of like lashing out at her a little bit,
Mhm.
where it's unintentional because like she's asking me how I'm doing and like what am I having for dinner and stuff like that. I'm like, leave me alone, woman.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it's just like that fear where it's just like, I complain about it now, but when she's gone, I'm gonna miss that so much, you
Mhm.
know? And I think, looking back on it now, like talking to you, it's more like I should be thankful, that I have somebody who's willing to be annoying,
Mhm.
who's willing to annoy me um, by loving me and asking
Mhm.
how I'm doing and stuff like that. Because I'm the first one to be like, I don't want to talk about my feelings, but I always do have somebody asking me how I'm doing,
Mhm.
and I'm thankful for that. And I don't, not everybody has that.
Mhm.
And it's just, it's scary. I
Yeah.
don't know how else to put it.
And then going back to what I mentioned, right? Like that the whole meditation thing that I did, like, I think you think of that for yourself, right? Like, you're verbalizing, you're kind of making sense of it now. Like, but think about that same compassion towards yourself,
Yeah.
right? Connect that with the strength that you're talking about. Is like, you know what? I'm gonna take a moment for myself and
Yeah.
really listen to that voice, that voice that is saying, because that lash out, that reaction, all those things is like, there's a voice that you don't quite understand, and you're
Hmm.
just reacting from it, right?
Yeah.
But when you take your time and you listen to it and you hear, oh shit, I'm really really scared right now. I'm really nervous right now. I'm really sad right now. Like, that's when you can kind of really experience that compassion with yourself, that and it's not by I'm going to solve it. It's by simply going into the space of, I'm going to allow it, I'm going to accept it, I'm going to be here for it, right? The same way that you're saying that that's the only thing that you can do for anyone going through that.
Um, you said something before that really spoke to me when you said that when you have those you feel like that anxiety that this time like you kind of just like sank into it and you just like listen to like that inner child of you. And I think that when it comes to death, I think I automatically go to like the first time I ever experienced death when I was a kid, which was when my grandpa passed away, and how much like that truly affected me. And I think it's I have to learn how to calm that kid down. Um, and tonight, I'm really gonna try. If I do feel that, they're gonna try to lead into that and see how that
Mm.
goes, kind of thing.
I love
Because I just said it again. But yeah, but
but I would love to know, to hear, how that goes, because it
yeah,
also, we were talking about like resolution, right? Trying to, or solve the problem and finding a solution, and the key factor there is like, it's not a solution. It's not like, oh, I fixed it. It's more so, oh, I felt it,
yeah,
and that's the key factor, is like allowing that feeling, because it's like, if we I like the analogy of that child, that inner child type of thing, because when we think about children, the most valuable thing that we can give a child is attention, is our attention. It's not about, like you've said this in the past, like kids aren't going to care that you took a job that makes more money or whatever. They're just going to, were you there? Are you there? Are you my father? It's all about the attention. So when we apply that to ourselves, we give ourselves that attention, that attention and space to feel those unresolvable feelings of lack of control and desperation, and the crumbling of everything that we see should be the way it should be. We give ourselves that space. We allow ourselves to truly be human, and I think that brings us back to the reality that is life.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I couldn't have said that better myself. Yeah. Life is a tricky bitch.
Mhm.
So complicated. It's so, I know, like, we always make the joke that, like, everything's make believe, and partially it is.
Mhm.
Um, fucking man, that make believe part sometimes is just very fucking hard and tricky.
But I think like the whole thing with the make believe thing that we talk about often, and the complexity that is life, it's really because of emotion, right? The complexity in life comes from an emotional state, because we are nothing but emotional beings. And I going back to that point of like accepting the unpredictability of that is what I think we can learn in this life, in our lives. That is not logic.
I think that it's the freakiest part of life. Where it's like that. There's no real understanding of it. Anybody who says that they understand life, I'm like, you're full of shit. You might have a grasp, you might have a inkling, but like, oh, I understand everything. It's like, you liar, because some things are just unexplainable, and it's just
Well, I mean, someone that claims they understand anything, like I'll just share a quick story about someone I was in the vicinity of, and I was just listening to this like interaction happening, and and everyone else in the group was bringing up like, oh, did you hear about like for example, in the Mario video games, like it's that says it's me Mario, that there's this whole thing going around that is like he's not saying it's me Mario with an accent, he's saying Itsumi Mario, which is
Super
Japanese
Mario.
for Super Mario. um and this particular individual was like, no, it's all fake news, that's all cancel culture. And it's like, what? And like there's a few things that came up in the conversation. That was one of them. There was a few other things, and he just kept like having these similar reactions to it. And it's like, oh, I see. Like that whole expectation, like when you're so much into like things need to be this perfect way, these of my expectation, this is what I expect of reality, that you no longer even have curiosity because you're afraid to go into the unknown, then everything is terrifying.
Yeah.
Every new piece of information, everything that goes against something that you believed for a moment is terrifying, is a direct attack to your core self. And you have to defend that, and you have to come up with something like that where like, no, you're crazy, you're so that's like, to me, that's a person that needs to have control. That's a person that needs to say, yeah, I understand everything already, because it's terrifying to imagine for a moment that you don't.
That's interesting. It's funny that you say that, because I listened to, I forgot what I was listening to, but they were talking about, like how, like, there's like those conspiracy theorists who are like, oh, Sandy Hook didn't happen, like all these like tragedies didn't happen, that it's like stage actors and stuff like that. And somebody was like, you ever think that like maybe it's not the fact that they don't believe in it, but like how you said, like they can't accept that kind of reality that there's something like so tragic could happen so that they create this like weird false narrative that like no it's bullshit it didn't really happen kind of thing
Mhm.
because like they can't fathom that kind of change
Mhm.
kind of
Yeah.
thing and I
But that thought process, so like I think that that's a very likely possibility. And it reminds me of when I was a kid, I had this like internal challenge within myself where, you know, I'm the youngest of all my siblings, so I kind of almost led a you know, single, like,
yeah,
only child kind of existence
you had a double
where
life yeah
yeah, where like everyone would protect me and everything. And it was like I I understood that I couldn't understand how something could be dangerous. Like I had this awareness. I remember at a specific age where I would be frustrated with myself because I always had this thought of like, no, that's not dangerous. They wouldn't make it if it was dangerous. Like, so like even walking down the street is like, oh, there's a sharp glass there that you can cut yourself. It's like, no, you wouldn't be able to cut yourself because someone would do something about it. Like I had this self-realization that I lived in such a protective bubble, but I knew it wasn't real. Like logically, I knew it wasn't real, but my experience kind of combated that. And I would be so frustrated with myself for having these thoughts of like no, no, it can't be that bad, especially when I grew up in an environment where, you know, I grew up in Washington Heights, and like I was taking a nap and I heard gunshots and found out the next day that the super of my building died, you know, and we all knew which taxi he took to try to get to the hospital because the ambulance wouldn't get there. And we would point down, there's just a taxi passing by that he bled out to death in, you know, like we knew this reality, yet I had this internal kind of thing that it was like I couldn't look past. It's like, no, 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 that was all supposed to happen, right? So when you bring up like the whole that conspiracy theory idea, is like having this like, no, 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 I can't let go of this because then what does it mean about life? Everything is fucked up. You know,
yeah
that's it's not necessarily the only possibility, but it's what you're left with expecting if this safety world that I live in is not. And that's terrifying, and it can lead you to just more reality to stay safe.
It's like that Santa's not real aspect of it. You're like, "Fuck, what? You're telling me?" Yeah, no, that's super interesting. Because it's kinda like you're stuck in, like, a dream world almost, like, everything's just like, "No, no, that's not how it is."
Mhm.
But in reality, it's like, "No, no, no, that's how it is."
It's
Yeah,
like,
no.
you know that everything's behind the curtain, but you're terrified of looking behind the curtain of
Yeah,
seeing how things happen. I rather believe in the magic that I see,
yeah.
you know.
If I
Um,
don't look at my checking account, I'm not broke.
but the thing is about that, like I just thought about what I said, I'd rather not look behind the curtain. It's
Mm,
not even a conscious thing. Is it this like subconscious driver, you know? And going back to like that whole meditation, that connection within yourself
yeah.
is where you give yourself the room, the space to go into that programming and question it, you know, because it's so automatic, it's so instilled. Like like as a child I had that kind of awareness, but I still couldn't release myself from it, you know, for a long time. And only by going deep within yourself is like how you're able to really address that programming, you know, that code that you operate under. Yeah.
Crazy. Look at us. I feel like I'm turning more into you, like, I feel like I'm more "Yeah, man."
And are you high?
No, not yet. Not yet. Sober as a fucking judge. I drank a Prime. I guess if having some caffeine in me is considered high right now, but, like, no. This is all right, guys. That was another episode of Mindset You. I feel like I'm getting more and more emotional in these things, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's nice to see this side of me and to use this as my therapy. Um, we covered a lot. I feel like we covered a broad spectrum. It's hard to be like, oh, it was just about one topic today. Um, but I mean, it all comes down to how we deal with stress and all the things that fucking stressed us out this past week. And how we're dealing with it, and the trials and tribulations, and guys, talk to your friends, talk to your loved ones. It helps. This helps me. Honestly and truly, it does. It does. I always joke around that, gearing up, I'm like, oh, I gotta do a podcast, and then finally when I do the podcast, I'm like, I feel like a weight was lifted off of me. So, talk to your friends, talk to your loved ones, talk to a therapist, talk to anybody about your problems.
If I can also say, Jay, like if talking to someone, like you don't have someone to talk to, journaling is also a powerful, powerful tool.
Yeah. So with that said, don't forget to listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, soon to be YouTube TV, YouTube Music, sorry, YouTube
There you
Music,
go.
and VidaProject.com, where you can find a whole bunch of useful tips and tools to navigate life. And with that said, thank you guys.
Peace.
Peace.